I have seen the dark shadows moving in the woods, and I have no doubt that whatever I have resurrected through this book is sure to come crawling for me. Groovy. Hey everyone, Lucamus Prime here. So it is time for a brand new movie review today, and today guys, I'm going to be reviewing a new movie that came out this year in the horror movie genre. And this is actually quite a special occasion because this is the first horror movie I've ever seen in a cinema, guys, today, actually. And this is, of course, the newest installment of my favourite horror franchise of all time. And this film, which I saw today, which I'm going to be reviewing, is, of course, none other than this year's Evil Dead Rise. So, now, when it comes to this movie then, so how was this movie made? So, the film development was preceded by scrapped plans for direct sequels to Evil Dead 2013 and Army of Darkness, and after a fourth season of Ash vs. Evil Dead, the TV show. By October 2019, the franchise creator Sam Raimi, my favourite director of all time, announced that a new film was in development, with Rob Tapert producing and Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell executive producing, and it was going to be written and directed by Lee Cronin. And filming took place in New Zealand from June to October 2021, and the film has premiered at a South by Southwest on March 15th of this year, and of course was released today, of course, in the cinemas. And so far it's reported reviews from critics. So, now when it comes to what I think of the movie, so as you guys may know, Evil Dead is my favourite horror franchise of all time, and I even as well own the movie so far. So I have, of course, my Blu-ray Steelbook of the first movie, of course, and my Steelbook, of course, of the sequel, which is my favourite horror movie of all time, Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. My favourite horror movie of all time, my favourite horror sequel of all time, and one of my favourite movies of all time in general. I even, of course, have the Heroes of a Trilogy in this Blu-ray collection as well, of course. So, which, of course, includes the Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness, of course, as well. The third movie is in it. And I also have a Steelbook as well of the 2013 reboot, what I'd like to call Evil Dead 4, because it's a continuation of the original movies. So, yeah. And, of course, I even as well have this figure of Ash with me, because Ash is my favourite horror character of all time. My favourite protagonist in horror movie history, so when it comes to a new movie then, so I of course saw it today, guys, at a cinema, and I gotta say that I thought it was really good. Like, wow, it was definitely a big blast from start to finish, and like, wow, it was actually, you know, definitely really good, and it definitely lived up to being the first horror movie I've seen in the cinema, because this film had lots of pretty freaky moments. I'm not going to deny that. Goodness me. Like, wow, it was definitely really scary, in my opinion. So now, what was this movie about, guys? So, I'm going to give, you know, a quick synopsis of a movie for you, so basically the movie involves two estranged sisters who are trying to survive and save their family from demonic creatures. And it takes place, of course, in an apartment complex, of course, so yeah. When it comes to the plot of the movie, so now you've been warned, guys, this movie does containing major spoilers, so I'm not going to spoil, you know, anything, of course, until this point. So if you guys have not seen the movie, I'd recommend you go see it now, because I'm going to talk spoilers. So I'm going to give you a countdown from 5 to 0. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, so now the film begins, of course, with an opening with characters who are like characters we didn't introduce in the trailers. It's friends who I think were called Teresa, Caleb, and Jessica. And basically it shows them on vacation at a lakeside cabin. So, and seeing that cabin definitely brought back memories of the original cabin from the Evil Dead original movie and the second movie. And when all of a sudden Jessica becomes ill and she appears to succumb to a demonic entity. So that was definitely, you know, a very scary moment in my opinion. Like the start of the movie, you know, begins with full-on horror, like, goodness me. And she then scalps Teresa's hair off, like, goodness me, that was definitely brutal. And then she decapitates Caleb using a drone that he was playing around with at the start of the movie. And then she levitates into the air as Teresa watches. And that's when the title, of course, comes on. Then we get to a flashback taking place a day early before this opening. And we get introduced to a character called Beth, who is a worker in the music industry, of course, who is played by Lily Sullivan, and she was, of course, the main character in this movie, of course, and she visits her sister, who is the single mother Ellie, in the apartment complex, as I talked about, in the synopsis of the movie, and she, of course, has 3 children, being Danny, Bridget, and Cassie, and so the children, of course, are then sent to go and get some pizza, and all of a sudden, however, there's an earthquake that hits the apartment complex, and it creates a massive hole in the parking lot. And Danny, of course, goes inside to investigate, and he finds, of course, loads of, like, artifacts, along with a record and a strange book, which he then takes up to his room in the apartment. And of course, the recordings on the book reveal it's none other than the Book of the Dead. Now, as you guys may know from my ranking video, Evil Dead, I said, of course, that if Bruce Campbell was not in this movie, I'd happily accept it because he's retired from playing Ash in movies. However, though, there's a bit of a catch, though, because despite saying he wouldn't be in the movie, of course, Bruce Campbell did, in fact, make an appearance in this movie, because when you listen to the recordings on the record that Danny listens to, you can hear a voice, of course, shouting out, I think he was saying, destroy it. It's called the Book of Dead for a reason. And that, of course, was none other than Bruce himself recording that line. And Lee Cronin has stated that he had Bruce Campbell voice this role all because he considered it to be Ash Williams, but displaced. So despite featuring a new set of characters, this film is still connecting to the original movies by featuring Bruce Campbell, which I'm very happy about. And so as the priest, of course, read the incantations in the book, of course, this causes a demonic entity to be unleashed, and it cuts the power to a building and creates a blackout, and then it attacks Ellie, like, in the elevator. Ellie then, of course, returns to the apartment, and where, of course, she's, of course, been possessed by the entity, and she then, like, does something with, like, some eggs in, like, a pan or something, and she's talking crazily, but then all of a sudden she vomits and collapses, and then they assume her to be dead. So Beth, alongside the neighbours called Gabriel and Mr. Fonda, lay Ellie to rest in her bedroom. However, though, she then awakens, and she's now full-on possessed by the demon, and then attacks the family. They're thankfully able to lock her out of the apartment, but then she brutally murders everyone in the hallway, and, like, that scene was just really freaky. Like for one thing, guys, she bites out Gabriel's eye, like, and then she spits it out, and it goes into, like, someone else's mouth, and he chokes to death. So, like, goodness me. And then she slaughters Mr. Fonda, who's holding a shotgun as well. And then after this, however, she's then also able to trick Cassie into letting her back into the apartment by convincing her that she's still her mother, even though, of course, she's no longer a mother. She's been possessed by a demon. And of course, unfortunately, as well, during the attack as well, Bridget, one of the children, also got attacked as well, and she got, like, scratched with, like, some as well, by Ellie in the attacks, and Danny's able to take Cassie to a room while Beth locks Ellie out of the apartment. Then all of a sudden, something bad happens to Bridget because she's, like, in the kitchen looking at herself, and then, like, the wound gets, bigger. And then it causes, like, black liquid to ooze out everywhere. And then Beth finds Bridget, like, eating a glass. Like, full-on, like, chewing glass. So, like, goodness me. Then Bridget attacks Beth as well. And then she goes to attack Danny and Cassie, however, Cassie is able to kill her using a doll, which is, I think it was called, I think it was called, like, Staphne or something like that, Staphne, and she actually is able to, like, wound her using the doll, really, because it has, like, a sharp end to it, which goes through Bridget and stabs her, so it supposedly kills her, and Danny then ties her body to her bed in case she could come back from the incantations. Danny then tells Beth about a Book of the Dead, and she listens to the recordings, but unfortunately, Bridget then suddenly reawakens, and she attacks Danny and Cassie. She's able to overpower Danny, and she stabs him in the chest, but he's able to light her on fire before he unfortunately ends up dying, sadly. And Ellie then is able to escape from the hallway using the vents, and the way she came out of the vents to attack was just absolutely terrifying, goodness me. And she attacks Beth in the bedroom as she listens to recordings, and Cassie then forced Beth a pair of scissors, which she used to subdue Ellie, and she takes Cassie out into the hallway in an attempt to escape, and and they take a shotgun from Mr. Fonda as well, but then Ellie arrives, and unfortunately both Danny and Bridget's possessed bodies as well come with her. And then all of a sudden, the corpses of the neighbours also awaken too. Like, goodness me. And they all make a pretty terrifying chant saying that Beth and Cassie will be dead by dawn. And that part I definitely did love, because that was reference, of course, Evil Dead 2 subtitle Dead by Dawn. So I definitely love that reference. And the possessed bodies is then also all of a sudden and then chase them, and they're able to get into the elevator, but unfortunately as they're going down it all floors with blood, and the elevator then falls to a ground level into a parking lot, and unfortunately however the possessed corpses then suddenly combine together and they create a pretty horrifying like spider-like creature. Goodness me, it was really scary. And unfortunately, Cassie gets abducted by the creature before they can escape, and the creature then tries to kill Cassie. And another hallmark to Ash that I did also love in this movie was also the return of the chainsaw. So yeah, a chainsaw appears in this movie, and Beth returns and shoots the creature, and then she uses the chainsaw to force the creature into a massive wood chipper which is there on the ground floor. And Ellie's head gets decapitated off the creature and taunts Beth, but Beth accepts that her sister is gone and kicks her into a wood chipper, which finally kills the creature, and she then escapes with Cassie. Then, of course, we get a scene taking place the next day, where Jessica, who of course was the character we saw at the beginning of the movie, is the other. She's been living in the apartment complex, and she leaves for a vacation, but she discovers a bloodied wood chipper. Then all of a sudden, an unseen demon is moving rapidly through the parking lot and attacks her as she's screaming in terror. And that, of course, leads right into the opening scene. And that's when the movie ends on a very horrifying ending right there. Goodness me. So, yeah, this film was definitely really scary in my opinion. But for what it's worth, it was definitely a really fun ride from start to finish and was a lot of fun. So, yeah. Anyway, guys, so that's why I think Evil Dead Rise. I think it was definitely a really fun movie and lots of great moments in my opinion in the movie, and pretty scary as well, really freaky, and it definitely lived up to being, you know, a great movie to watch as my first horror movie in the cinema, and wow. So when it comes to, of course, what I think of this movie, it's probably my fourth favourite in the franchise after the trilogy with Ash Williams, and also, what I think it was a good movie, there was probably some bad qualities I'd have with it. So, for example, maybe that, you know, maybe it could have done with a bit more connections to the storylines before, maybe. And I kind of wish it acknowledged the events of the 2013 movie, because that movie, in my opinion, does deserve continuation, especially, of course, because it ended with setting up more to come. And so it would have been cool if this one had connections to it, and also as well, you know, but yeah, other than that, though, it was still, you know, a very good movie in my opinion, and was also, I think also the vomit scene was also a bit disgusting as well, in my opinion, pretty cringe, really, to be honest. You know, I think vomit scenes in films in general, they do make me cringe a lot when I see them, but yeah. But nonetheless, this film was definitely a very fun ride, and definitely my fourth in the franchise behind the trilogy. So in the comments for this video, I'll post a comment of my ranking of the movie, including this movie. So if I was to give Evil Dead Rise a score out of 10, guys, I'd probably give it a very, you know, solid score of 8 out of 10. Definitely, in my opinion, a very good movie. Absolutely. So, yeah. So, guys, this is me doing my review for, of course, this year's Evil Dead Rise, the newest installment of Evil Dead, my favourite horror franchise of all time. So, you know, drill, guys. Be sure to give this video a like. Also, be sure to in the comments what you guys think of Evil Dead Rise. If you've seen it, let me comments below what you think of it. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it too, like I did, absolutely. So, yeah. Also, be sure to join Team Prime by pressing subscribe if it was coming in the future. If you'd like to be a member, you can press on using the Peace Lads or Hero subscription. And groovy.